I've had some personal stuff I've been dealing with, and not real motivated, but I decided I'm just gonna do a video it probably won't be a quick one because the chapter is rather long, but I'm going to be reading out of Man and His Symbols. And I know oftentimes, I mean, my stuff can be boring, but that's okay. It's interesting for people to go back and read it if they want to. So we stopped at the retreat from reality. And I'm not really good about seeing comments while I'm reading, so please forgive me. Sun's out today. Yay. It was overcast yesterday. Sun helps a lot with mood stabilization. Okay, the retreat from reality. Franz Marc once said, "The art that is coming will give formal expression to our scientific conviction." This was a truly prophetic saying. We have traced the influence on artists of Freud's psychoanalysis and of the discovery or rediscovery of the unconscious in the early years of the 20th century. Another important point is the connection between modern art and the results of research in nuclear physics. To put it in simple, non-scientific terms, nuclear physics has robbed the basic units of matter of their absolute concreteness. It has made matter mysterious. I'm just going to finish reading this little paragraph and then I put some notes about this. Paradoxically, mass and energy, wave and particle have proved to be interchangeable. The laws of cause and effect have become valid only up to a certain point. It does not matter at all that these relativities, discontinuities, and paradoxes hold good only on the margins of our world, only for the infinitely small, the atom, and the infinitely great, the cosmos. They have caused a revolutionary change in the concept of reality. For a new, totally different and irrational reality has dawned behind the reality of our natural world, which is ruled by the laws of classical physics. Now I'm just going to take a break for a minute and read what I wrote about this. Relativities, I did a definition. The absence of standards of absolute and universal application. In physics, it's the dependence of various physical phenomenon on relative motion of the observer and the observed objects, especially regarding nature and behavior of light, space, time, and gravity. Discontinuities, a physical break in physical continuity or sequence in time. There is no significant discontinuity between modern primitive societies. A sharp difference of characteristics between parts of something. Oh, and then I wrote, like family members, a sharp difference of characteristics between parts of something. And I pondered, like family members? Heritu, which means until now or until the point in time under discussion. Space-time continuum of physics. Space-time is a four-dimensional model that combines the three dimensions of space with the one dimension of time into a single dimension. It is a fundamental concept of physics, particularly in Einstein's theory of relativity, which shows that measurements of space and time are not absolute, but depend on an observer's motion and gravitational field. Space-time can be visualized as a flexible fabric that is warped or curved by mass and energy. And this curvature is what we experience as gravity. So that's what I wrote about what I just read. And then I put parentheses around this paragraph. Corresponding relativities and paradoxes were discovered in the domain of psyche. Here too, another world dawned at the margin of the world of consciousness, governed by new and hitherto unknown laws. So let's look up hitherto again. I see. I'm going to pronounce it right. Where did I write it down? Hitherto, an adverb, which means until now or until the point in time under discussion. So let's read that paragraph, that sentence again. Here too another world dawned on the margin of the world of consciousness, governed by new and hereto unknown laws that are strangely akin to the laws of nuclear physics. The parallelism between nuclear physics and psychology of the collective unconscious was often a subject of discussion between Jung and Wolfgang Pauli, the Nobel Prize winner in physics. The space-time continuum of physics and the collective unconscious can be seen, so to speak, as the outer and inner aspects of one and the same reality behind appearances. The relationship between physics and psychology will be discussed by Dr. M.L. von Franz in her concluding essay. It is a characteristic of this one world behind the worlds of physics and the psyche that its laws, processes, and contents, processes, and contents are unimaginable. That is a fact of outstanding importance for the understanding of art of our time. For the main subject of modern art is, in a certain sense, unimaginable too. Therefore, much modern art has become abstract. The great artists of this century, and remember this book is copyright in, which of course makes a huge difference. What's the copyright on this thing? It's like in the 60s, I think. Yep, 1964. Okay. For the main subject of modern art, in a certain sense, unimaginable too. Therefore, much modern art has become abstract. The great artists of this century have sought to give visible form to the life behind things. And so their works are symbolic expression of a world behind consciousness, or indeed, behind dreams. For dreams are only rarely non-figurative. And I think I even wrote that down too. Non-figurative, I sure did. Definition: figurative, departing from literal use of words, metaphorical. So if figurative is metaphorical, non-figurative would mean like literal. Okay, so what was that sentence again? Or indeed behind dreams, for dreams are only rarely non-figurative. Okay. Thus they point to the one reality, the one life, which seems to be the common background of the two domains of physical and psychic experiences. Only a few artists realized the connection between their form of expression and physics and psychology. Kandinsky is one of the masters who expressed the deep emotion he felt at the early discoveries of modern physical research. In my mind, the collapse of the atom was the collapse of the whole world. Suddenly, the stoutest walls fell. Everything was turned unstable, insecure, and soft. I would not have been surprised if a stone had melted into thin air before my eyes. Science, this was in 1964, science seemed to have been annihilated. What resulted from this dissolution was the artist's withdrawal from the realm of nature, from the populous foreground of things. It seemed, Kandinsky added, as if I saw art steadily disengaging itself from nature. This separation from the world of things happened more or less at the same time to other artists, too. Franz Marc wrote, "Have we not learned from 1,000 years of experience that things cease to speak the more we hold up to them the visual mirror of their appearance?" And I circled that because I love that. I'm going to read it again. Have we not learned from 1,000 years of experience that things cease to speak the more we hold up to them the visual mirror of their appearance? Appearance is eternally flat. For Marc, the goal of art was to reveal unearthly life dwelling behind everything, to break the mirror of life so that we may look being in the face. Paul Klee wrote, "The artist does not ascribe to the natural form of appearance the same convincing significance as the realists who are his critics. He does not feel so intimately bound to that reality, because he cannot see in the formal products of nature the essence of the creative process. He is more concerned with formative powers than with formal products." Piet Mondrian accused Cubism of not having pursued abstraction to its logical end. The expression of pure reality that can only be attained by the creation of pure form, unconditioned by subjective feelings and ideas. Unconditioned by subjective feelings and ideas. Behind changing natural forms, there lies changeless, pure reality. A great number of artists were seeking to get past appearances into reality, in quotations, of the background of the spirit in matter, in quotations, by a transmutation of things through fantasy, surrealism, dream pictures, the use of chance, etc. The abstract artists, however, turned their backs on things. Their paintings contained no identifiable concrete objects. They were, in Mondrian's words, simply pure form. But it must be realized that what these artists were concerned with was something far greater than a problem of form and the distinction between concrete and abstract, figurative and non-figurative. Their goal was the center of life and things, their changeless background and an inward certitude. Art had become mysticism. The spirit in whose mystery art was submerged was an earthly spirit, which the medieval alchemists called Mercurius. He is a symbol of the spirit that these artists divined or sought behind nature and things. Behind the appearance of nature, their mysticism was alien to Christianity, for that mercurial spirit is alien to a heavenly spirit. Indeed, it was Christianity's dark adversary that was forging its way in art. Here we begin to see the real historical and symbolic significance of modern art. Like the Hermetic movements in the Middle Ages, it must be understood as a mysticism of the spirit of earth, and therefore an expression of our time, compensatory to Christianity. No artist sensed this mystic background of art more clearly or spoke of it with greater passion than Kandinsky. The importance of the great works of art of all time did not lie in his eyes, on the surface and externals, but in the root of all roots, in the mystical content of art. Therefore, he says, the artist's eye should always be turned in upon his inner life, and his ear should always be alert for the voice of inward necessity. This is the only way of giving expression to what the mystic vision commands. And there's some pictures, and these are Franz Marc's paintings. Kandinsky called his pictures a spiritual expression of the cosmos, a music of the spheres, a harmony of colors and form. Form, even if it is quite abstract and geometrical, has an inward clang. It is a spiritual being with effects that coincide absolutely with that form. The impact of the acute angle of a triangle on a circle is actually as overwhelming, in effect, as the finger of God touching the finger of Adam and Michelangelo. In 1914, Franz Marc wrote in his Aphmorsis, "Matter is a thing that man can at best tolerate. He refuses to recognize it. The contemplation of the world has become the penetration of the world. The contemplation of the world has become the penetration of the world." There is no mystic who, in his moments of sublimest rapture, ever attained the perfect abstraction of modern thought, or took his soundings with a deeper plummet. Paul Klee, who may be regarded as the poet among modern painters, says, "It's the artist's mission to penetrate as far as may be toward the secret ground." I love this. So I've pre-read this chapter. So like when I read it out loud to an audience, I kind of know where it's going, but this is great. It is the artist's mission to penetrate as far as may be toward that secret ground where primal law feeds growth. Which artist would not wish to dwell at the central organ of all motion in space-time, be it the brain or the heart of creation, from which all functions derive their life? In the womb of nature, in the primal ground of creation, where the secret key to all things lie hidden, our beating heart drives downward, far down into the primal ground. What is encountered on this journey must be taken most seriously when it is perfectly fused with the appropriate artistic means in visible form. Because, as Klee adds, it is not a question of merely reproducing what is seen. The secretly perceived is made visible. Klee's work is rooted in that primal ground. My hand is entirely the instrument of a more distant sphere. Nor is it my head that functions in my work. It is something else. In his work, the spirit of nature and the spirit of the unconscious become inseparable. They have drawn him and draw us, the onlookers, into their magical circle. Klee's work is the most complex expression, now poetic, now demonic, of, and I always forget how to pronounce this word, so I wrote it down, chthonic, because it's spelled C-H-T-H-O-N-I-C, chthonic spirit. And chthonic is concerning, belonging to, or inhabiting the underworld. The chthonic spirit. Humor and bizarre ideas build a bridge from the realm of the dark underworld to the human world. I'm going to read that again. Humor and bizarre ideas build a bridge from the realm of the dark underworld to the human world. The bond between his fantasy and the earth is the careful observation of the laws of nature and the love for all creatures. For the artist, he once wrote, the dialogue with nature is the conditio sine qua non of his work. Conditio sine qua non of his work. I'm not sure what that means. I don't think I wrote that down, did I? I hope that I did. I didn't. Oh well. Conditio sine qua non. A different expression of the hidden unconscious spirit can be found in one of the most notable of the younger abstract painters, Jackson Pollock, the American who was killed in a car accident when he was 44. His work has had a great influence on the younger artists of our time. In my painting, he revealed that he painted in a kind of trance. When I am in my painting, I am not aware of what I am doing. It is only after sort of get acquainted period that I see what I have been about. I have no fears about making changes, destroying the image, because the painting has a life of its own. I try to let it come through. It is only when I lose contact with the painting that the result is a mess. Otherwise, there is pure harmony, an easy give and take, and the painting comes out well. Pollock's pictures, which were painted practically unconsciously, are charged with boundless emotional vehemence. In their lack of structure, they are almost chthonic. Oh, I lost my spot. Because remember, chthonic is from the underworld. A glowing lava stream of colors, lines, planes, and points. They may be regarded as a parallel to what the alchemists called the massa confusa la prima materia, or chaos. All ways of defining the precious prime matter of the alchemical process, the starting point of the quest for the essence of being. The starting point of the quest for the essence of being. The starting point for the quest of the essence of being. Pollock's pictures represent the nothing that is everything. That is the unconscious itself. The nothing that is everything. The unconscious itself. They seem to live in a time before the emergence of consciousness and being, or to be fantastic landscapes of a time after the extinction of consciousness and being. In the middle of our century, the purely abstract picture without any regular order of forms and colors have become the most frequent expression in painting. The deeper the disillusion of reality, the more the picture loses its symbolic content. The reason for this lies in the nature of the symbol and its function. The symbol is an object of the known world, hinting at something unknown. It is the known expressing the life and sense in the inexpressible. But in merely abstract paintings, the world of the known has completely vanished. Nothing is left to form a bridge to the unknown. On the other hand, these paintings reveal an unexpected background, a hidden sense. They often turn out to be more or less exact images of nature itself, showing an outstanding similarity with the molecular structure of organic and inorganic elements of nature. This is a perplexing fact. Pure abstraction has become an image of concrete nature. But Jung may give us the key to understanding. The deeper layers of the psyche, he has said, lose their individual uniqueness as they retreat farther and farther into the darkness. The deeper layers of the psyche, he has said, lose their individual uniqueness as they retreat farther and farther into the darkness. Lower down, that is to say, As they approach the autonomous functional systems, they become increasingly collective until they are universalized and extinguished in the body's materiality in chemical substances. The body's carbon is simply carbon. Hence, at bottom, the psyche is simply world. A comparison of abstract paintings and microphotographs show that utter abstraction of imaginative art has in a secret and surprising way become naturalistic, its subject being elements of matter. The great abstraction and the great realism, which parted at the beginning of our century, have come together again. We remember Kandinsky's words, "The poles open two paths, which both lead to one goal at the end. This goal, the point of union, is reached in modern abstract paintings, but it is attained completely unconsciously. The artist's intention plays no part in the process." This point leads to the most important fact about modern art. I have to sit down, my back hurts. Oh. This point leads to the most important fact about modern art. The artist is, as it were, not so free in his creative work as he may think he is. If his work is performed in a more or less unconscious way, it is controlled by the laws of nature that, on the deepest level, correspond to the laws of psyche, and vice versa. The greatest pioneers of modern art gave clearest expression to its true aims and to the depths from which the spirit rose that left its imprint on them. This point is important, though later artists who may have failed to realize it did not always plumb the same depths. Yet neither Kandinsky nor Klee nor any of the early masters of modern painting was ever aware of the grave psychological danger he was undergoing with the mystical submersion in the chthonic spirit and the primal ground of nature. The danger must now be explained. As a starting point, we may take another aspect of abstract art. The German writer Wilhelm Wöhringer interpreted abstract art as the expression of metaphysical unease and anxiety that seemed to him to be more pronounced among northern peoples. As he explained, they suffer from reality, right? The naturalness of the southern poles is denied to them, and they long for super real and super sensual world to which they give expression in imaginative or abstract art. But as Sir Herbert Reed remarks in his Conscious History of Modern Art, metaphysical anxiety is no longer only Germanic and Northern. It now characterizes the whole of modern art. Reed quotes Klee, who wrote in his diary at the beginning of 1915, "The more horrifying this world becomes," and that was in 1915, "the more horrifying this world becomes, as it is in these days, the more art becomes abstract. While a world at peace produces realistic art, to Franz Marc, abstraction offered a refuge from the evil and ugliness of this world. Very early in life, I felt that man was ugly. The animals seemed to be more lovely and pure, yet even among them I discovered so much that was revolting and hideous that my painting became more and more schematic and abstract. A good deal may be learned from a conversation that took place in 1958 between the Italian sculptor Marino Marini and the writer Edoardo Roditi. The dominant subject that Marini treated for years in many variations is the nude figure of a youth on a horse. In the early versions, which he described in the Conversations as symbols of hope and gratitude after the Second World War, the writer sits his horse with outstretched arms, his body bending slightly backward. In the course of the years, his treatment of the subject became more abstract. The more or less classical form of the writer gradually dissolved. I think that's fascinating to do the same idea over a span of years, same artist, and to see how it transforms. It's pretty fascinating. Speaking of the feeling underlying this change, Marini said, if you look at my equestrian statues of the last 12 years, in order of time, you will notice that the animal's panic steadily increases, but that it is frozen with terror and stands paralyzed rather than reacting or taking flight. That is all because I believe that we are approaching the end of the world. That was back in 1915. In every figure, I strove to express a deepening fear and despair. In this way, I am attempting to symbolize the last stage of a dying myth, the myth of the individual. Victorious hero of the humanists, man of virtue. In fairy tale and myth, the victorious hero is a symbol of consciousness. His defeat, as Marini says himself, means the death of the individual, a phenomenon that appears in a social context as the submergence of the individual in the mass, and in the art as the decline of the human element. When Roditi asked whether Marini's style was abandoning the classical canon on its way to becoming abstract, Marini replied, as soon as art has to express fear, it must of itself depart from the classical idea. He found subjects for his work in the bodies excavated at Pompeii. Roditi called Marini's art a Hiroshima style, for it conjures up visions of the end of the world. Marini admitted it. He felt, he said, as if he had been expelled from an earthly paradise. Until recently, the sculptor aimed at full sensual and powerful forms, but for the last 15 years, sculpture prefers form in disintegration. The conversation between Marini and Roditi explains the transformation of sensory art into abstraction that should be clear to anyone who has ever walked open-eyed through an exhibition of modern art. However much he may appreciate or admire its formal qualities, he can scarcely fail to sense the fear, despair, aggression, and mockery that sounds like a cry from many works. The metaphysical anxiety that is expressed by the distress in these pictures and sculptures may have arisen from the despair of a doomed world, and it did with Marini. In other cases, the emphasis may lie on the religious factor, on the feeling that God is dead. There is a close connection between the two. At the root of this inner distress lies the defeat, or rather, the retreat, of consciousness. In the upsurge of mystical experience, everything that once bound man to the human world, to earth, to time and space, to matter and natural living of life has been cast aside or dissolved. But unless the unconscious is balanced by the experience of consciousness, it will implacably reveal its contrary or negative aspect. The wealth of creative sound that made the harmony of the spheres or the wonderful mysteries of the primal ground have yielded to destruction and despair. In more than one case, the artist has become the passive victim of the unconscious. I totally understand that. I've been there. I know other artists who have been there. I'm going to read it again. In more than one case, the artist has become the passive victim of the unconscious. In physics, too, the world of the background has revealed its paradoxical nature. The laws of the inmost elements of nature, the newly discovered structures and relations in its basic unit, the atom, have become the scientific foundation for unprecedented weapons of destruction. Think about where we are today. Woo. And opened to the way to annihilation. Ultimate knowledge and the destruction of the world are the two aspects of the discovery of the primal ground of nature. Jung, who was familiar with dangerous dual nature of the unconscious, as with the importance of human consciousness, could offer mankind only one weapon against catastrophe. The call. Well, here's some paintings from Jackson Pollock. And there he is. The call for individual consciousness, which seems so simple and yet is so arduous. Consciousness is not only indispensable as a counterpoise to the unconscious, and not only gives the possibility of meaning to life, it has also an eminently practical function. The evil witnessed in the world outside, and neighbors or neighboring peoples can be made conscious as evil contents of our own psyche as well. And this insight would be the first step to a radical change in our attitudes to our neighbors. As above, so below, as within, so without. We're all connected. Envy, lust, sensuality, lies, and all known vices are the negative, dark aspects of the unconscious, which can manifest itself in two ways. In the positive sense, it appears as a spirit of nature, creatively animating man, things, and the world. It is the chthonic spirit that has been mentioned so often in this chapter. In the negative sense, the unconscious, that same spirit, manifests itself as a spirit of evil, as a drive to destroy. As has already been pointed out, the alchemists personified this spirit as the spirit of Mercurius. And I'm going to kill a fly. It's very chthonic of me. And called it, with good reason, Mercurius duplex, the two-faced dual Mercurius. In the religious language of Christianity, it is called the devil. I'm just going to be quiet on that one. But however improbable it may seem, the devil too has a dual aspect. In the positive sense, he appears as Lucifer, literally the light bringer. Looked at in the light of these difficult and paradoxical ideas, modern art, which we have recognized as symbolic of the chthonic spirit, also has a dual aspect. In the positive sense, it is the expression of a mysteriously profound nature mysticism. In the negative, it can only be interpreted as the expression of an evil or destructive spirit. The two sides belong together, for the paradox is one of the basic qualities of the unconscious and its contents. To prevent any misunderstanding, it must once more be emphasized that these considerations have nothing to do with artistic and aesthetic values, but are solely concerned with the interpretation of modern art as a symbol of our time. Now, I don't think I've read this part yet. Let me see. No, okay, so that's it. That one's it. Great chapter. So that's it for today. Pretty good.